Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today to discuss a very interesting topic on understanding recent solar tariff trends in India. The event is organized by JMK Research, a market research and consulting firm focusing on renewables and e-mobility segments. The session is supported by Jinko Solar, one of the largest and most innovative solar module manufacturers having global presence. Quickly on the format of the webinar. The webinar will consist of interactive discussion with our eminent speakers, followed by question and answer session. At the end, we will have 15 minutes for the question and answer session. Participants are welcome to submit their questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the webinar window. Now, let's talk about some of the topic of discussion today. I want to set a little bit brief context why we have chosen this topic. So we have seen that solar trends, as all of us have seen, are quite aggressive in India. Tariffs have reached to a historic low of 1.99 per unit in December 2020, after which there is an upward trend that is seen in last few months. Going by the specific auctions that were concluded in July and August, as you can see, there were 6 tenders where auctions got concluded, and under which 3.7 gigawatts is allotted. And as you can see, we have tried to capture here the capacity that was tendered versus the bids that they have received. The oversubscription rate was as high as 14 to 15 times that the tendered capacity. For the plain vanilla solar tenders, the lowest tariff that we have seen in last 2 months is rupees 2.14 in RAM's 500 megawatt solar Nimach tender. While in wind solar hybrid tender, this is a recent activity, and it's as per the industry sources, I think it's quite aggressive, which is 2.34 per unit is what we have seen. Now, in all these tenders, basically, next slide, please. So 11 developers have been allotted 3.7 gigawatt as part of these auctions that are concluded in last 2 months. And you can see these are all big developers who already have a good enough presence in India market. I will also like to showcase you some of now overall this trend is about the participation that in these bids that's received. And as you can see, the ones that are highlighted in boxes, these are the new entrants, so basically new players who have started participating in these tenders. A lot of these, as you can see, NHDC, GAIL are all public sector companies who have shown interest into this segment, and there are other Indian corporates as well which are new to this tender activity, which is HES, Shady Sai, ITP and industry, some of the names we have listed here. So now, as part of this background, we wanted to understand why these trends are there, why are the reasons these tariffs are high. And in this backdrop, the agenda for the session today will be understanding recent tariff trends in these RAMS, SECI and MSEDCL tenders that are concluded. Underlying risk with ongoing tariff trends. Will duty-free window have any implications on these projects? What role technology can play in bringing down the tariffs, like usage of bifacial modules, usage of trackers, etc. New players that are participating in bids, and developers' perspective on future tariff trends. And now to take on the discussion today, we have a very interesting and diverse mix of experts with us today. We have representation today from leading global module manufacturer, lending agency, tracker company, project developer, as well as EPC player to share their insights and give us a holistic perspective on current tariff trends. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session to all the panelists. A very warm welcome to all of you. A quick introduction of our experts today. On panel, we have Mr. Sai Charan Kupili, Technical Director, Jinko Solar. We have Ms. Tanya Singhal, Founder and Director, Solar Arise. We have Mr. Mudit Jain, Head Research, Tata Cleantech. We have Mr. Rama Lingeshwara Prasad, Head Proposals, Renewables Business Unit, L&T Construction. And Mr. Vikas Bansal, CEO from Game Change Solar. Thank you all to be part of this discussion today. Without taking much time now, we would like to start with Sai, you first. As a leading global module supplier, we believe you understand a lot about the global technology trends. So from you, we would want to know your experience with respect to bifacial modules adoption trends globally vis-a-vis India market. Over to you, Sai.
Yeah, thanks, Jyoti. Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon. Thanks for your time for joining this particular session. Yeah, specific to your question on what exactly are the recent trends, which is what is happening in the industry. If we just try to see globally, right from 2018 onwards. So the trend started with bifacial technology propositions in the market, but that didn't taken any kind of shape for the megawatt scale kind of projects. But going down from that particular timeline to from 2018 onwards, if we just try to see, market proposition always used to follow the trend of 156.75 wafer size, which used to come with poly segment modules. And later on in 2019, it completely changed the shape of this particular 156.75 wafer to 158.75 within monopoke kind of technology. And that also has taken wide variety of variants within the monofacial segment itself and not much with bifacial modules. But if you just try to see starting from Q3 of 2019 onwards, the entire game has been changed with 158.75 wafer size modules that has started with the era of bifacial technology. And in recent days, if we just try to see what exactly is being expected by most of the developers. Now, everyone are asking us for specifically on the 540 or 530 above kind of power class. And this particular 540 or 530 kind of power class is available with either 1i2 wafer size modules or 210 wafer size modules. But if you just try to see the kind of energy density and the specific power density of these particular two different wafer size modules, of course, specific power density is better with 1i2 wafer size modules, and maturity specific to technology optimizations and the other factors, which is what is adding on the fronts of levelizing or reducing the levelized cost of energy, that is favoring much with 1i2 wafer size kind of modules at the moment of time. But just going forward down the line after 8 quarters, we can expect that 210 wafer size can take a bigger shape. But as of now, it is 1i2 wafer size kind of module which is ruling the market. And within this particular 1i2 wafer size module, which is up to 540 watt peak, but the capacity constraint is there specific to 30 gigawatt to 60 gigawatt capacity across the globe. Out of 160 gigawatt of global demand capacity, if we just try to match this particular figure with that, so it can stand around like 58 gigawatt capacity to 60 gigawatt capacity, out of which few are already booked with few of the regions. So that is one major challenge with 1i2 wafer size. So obviously people will try to go for the next available variant, which is less than 540. So the next immediate variant which is available, which is less than 540, is 470, 475 watt peak, which comes with 163.75. And these all particular variant technologies like 163.75 or 1i2, these all are available in both monofacial and bifacial. And specifically on the bifacial, if you just try to see, bifacial has got the definite metric of absorbing direct irradiance and diffused irradiance even from the rate side of the module, which has got the benefit of increasing your IRR specific to the specific energy yield, and that eventually will benefit you in reducing the LCOE aspect. So that benefit is always there. But if you just try to match and mix with the existing technology options, yes, 1i2 is the first option, which is the trending technology in the market as on date. But looking at the current scenario where everyone are trying to push for 1i2 wafer size kind of modules and expecting 535, 540 kind of power class, but that is not a kind of immediately low hanging fruit for everyone. So they definitely have to think about 163.75, which is the high energy density technology, which generally comes with tiling ribbon kind of technology, which has got a low spacing or the reduced spacing between cell to cell and reduced CTM kind of thing. So these particular benefits is a part of high energy density kind of technologies, which is coming only with 163.75. And below than that, if you just try to say, and this particular 163.75 is having capacity of only 20 gigawatt capacity out of the entire 300 gigawatt of manufacturing capability of all module manufacturers from this particular segment. So less than that, if you just try to see, now people can accept only 440 or 450 watt peak modules that generally comes with 166 wafer size, and below that it's completely in absolute mode. So no 158.75 wafer size modules are going to be available in the market, which means 400, 405, 410 watt peak kind of power class are not going to be available in the market. So below than that, earlier it used to be poly configuration, poly segmentization, which is completely gone out from the market. Only there can be some kind of reserves which are available in the market, but that is only limited to a single gigawatt kind of capacities. But it is not going to support the existing ecosystem requirements. And on the bifacial aspect, if you just try to see, yes, specific to region, specific to location, this varies. And depending on the albedo factor, depending on the type of installation which exactly you want to go, and depending on the type of whether you want to go with single axis tracker, or you want to go with fixed system, or you want to go with a fixed system with increased elevated height kind of thing, definitely that makes more sense in reducing your LCOE and increasing your energy, specific energy yield on those particular lines. So compiling all these particular aspects, if we just try to see, right from 2020 onwards, what we have noticed is that we started picking more on the bifacial technology for Indian market specifically, right from Q3 of 2019, which is from the start of REI 2019. We showcased our product specific to SWAN series module, which used to be with 405 watt peak. But eventually, what we noticed is that initially people started talking only about monofacial technology just because of the cost optimization, which is what is there. And then later on for 2020, what we noticed is that out of 1.25 gigawatt capacity, whatever we have delivered to our country, so it is like that has captured more than 20% of market share specific to the capacities. Whatever we have delivered is with bifacial kind of technologies. And for the last year, what we have noticed is that 140 gigawatt or 140 megawatt kind of project, which is the first biggest triple digit megawatt project in India, and that was with Jinko Solar module. That was with SWAN series, which used to be with 405, 400, 390, 395, 400 kind of power class was supplied to that. And as per the industry practices and as per the data points, whatever we try to hear out from our clients, what we notice is that this has been installed in Badmer kind of region, which is in Rajasthan kind of location. So what we had seen is that the kind of energy assumptions or the kind of expectations from this particular plant is crossing the initial simulation results. So this is one of the good sign what we have noticed is that, and this has been done with both fixed tilt and tracker kind of solution. But I'm not completely having the handful of information specific to what kind of capacity is with tracker and what is the capacity with fixed tilt. But yes, we are sure and we are confident that the kind of figures what has been estimated on the simulation is very well matched and crossed beyond that, specific to the actual numbers which are coming from site. This all is happening just because of the yellow factor, because in general, if it is a kind of sand, yellow factor cannot be articulated within the algorithm of PVsyst, and that definitely will help us in getting extra amount of specific energy yield from the existing system, and which is what is happening in this particular case. With an assumption of 25% albedo, 30% albedo, there can be a gain of around like 1 to 2% minimum gain just because of yellow factor. And if this particular irradiation values are going beyond 1100 or 1200 watt per square meter, you can expect this particular yellow factor a bit beyond 3% as well. So this is specific to a bifacial kind of technologies in the Indian market segment. And what we expect is that, because constantly right from the mid of 2018, we started delivering, we changed our strategy specifically for Indian market, and we delivered more than gigawatts in Indian region, wherein which what we have noticed for 2021 as well is that beyond 40% kind of market share is going to be captured with bifacial kind of technologies, and the existing tariffs, whatever are there within the market, are trying to prove the same thing. And there are a few other players who are trying with the combination of bifacial module variants, which is coming with both bifacial with a transparent backsheet and bifacial with dual glass kind of option, and just going with a kind of tracker kind of option definitely makes much more sense for the northern regions, where exactly it is having albedo percentage beyond 22%, 23% is really making much more sense if that is going to get installed at a height of minimum 0.8 meter to 1.2 meter. This is what specific to bifacial technology is what we could see on.
Thank you, Sai. I think those are very interesting numbers. 40% share is a huge number if you're expecting that for next year. We will have some more follow-up questions, but let's take that towards end. Let's we, like all of us, have heard how technology is playing an important role in in the solar landscape. Let's hear it, the financing perspective. So we have Mr. Mudit Jain from Tata Cleantech. Mudit, I want to know your views on current solar tariff trends in India, and do you think the low cost of capital, how that is defining solar tariffs in India? Over to you, Mudit.
Hi, Jyoti. Thank you for having me here. Look, regarding the tariff structure, Tanya would be in better position to say she is also dragging the tariff down, by the way. So here the idea and the point is what exactly changed. The last time we discussed about it, we were about 1.99 and 2 rupee. From that time to this time, what really has changed? On the positive side, I don't see any change perhaps. On the negative side, the module prices have gone up. The structure prices have gone up. It's not limited to structure, all metal prices have gone up. Here, what remained constant was only the financing cost. Everything else has worked out in negative favor. For all these projects now which have been bid of late, they will have to go through the BCD and ALMM landscape. So basically the cost parameter will still go up from this point on. However, with respect to financing, increasingly many people are believing that they would be able to raise low cost capital, fixed cost capital for a longer duration. Earlier that bond duration or that fixed kind of a cost duration used to be for 3 to 5 years at best. But now people are talking about raising it for a period north of 10 years. If that indeed can become a reality, and we can see that the financing is indeed the reason why, despite all the measures not really sticking in the right direction, the tariffs are going down. Look, ultimately, solar or wind today is entirely dependent on the capital cost once the project is installed, because this is the only cost which goes on year basis. And if you're able to manage it by various means, through InvIT or through bond issuance or through any other means, you will be able to reduce the financing cost so that this particular project you can make it work. But despite all of that, for 1.99 and 2 rupee, you were talking about the module price in the range of 17 to 18 cents, going down to 15 cents. But today we are not talking about that number even in the foreseeable future. The other parameter which people can depend on is the increased PLF by way of use of maybe improved technology. Maybe it can come up by the time these projects are getting into commissioning mode. But ultimately, it will all depend upon their ability to finance this for a longer duration on a fixed cost basis. Having said that, the flip side of it is that the bank guarantees have now fallen to a value of only 8 lakh rupees per megawatt. And that's not a very high value, given that if nothing is falling on your region, then you may want to scrap the project altogether.
Thank you, Mudit, for giving these crisp insights. I think that is bang on. Tanya, let's hear from you the developer perspective. You've heard the technology perspective, you have heard the financing, what Mudit is saying. We want to know your take on the current solar tariff trends in India. Over to you, Tanya.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jyoti. And I mirror so much what I just heard from Mudit, specifically in terms of what changed. And I'll come to that and hint on that. But I want to look at it at a perspective of where we stand in time today. And are these questions new of what we are hearing? So, just if in the long arc of history, if I see when we were at tariffs of 12 rupees and we came to a tariff of 8, we were asked similar questions. When we were at 8, we went to 5, we were asked again the same set of questions. Can you make this work? Is it sustainable? Will it happen? From 5 to 4 to 3 to now at 2.5. The nature of the questions haven't changed much. But what has been established is that the sector is growing, more money is coming in. The scales of capital that we're talking about is no longer a few crores. We're talking in $1 billion. And that is not money for CSR, right? That is money to make returns. So fundamentally, nobody is doing this at a loss, right? Us as developer community are doing this, one, definitely to make this world and the environment a better place, but also to bring sustainable returns for our investors. So that's the first background on which I wanted to start with. Now, whether those returns are, really high, 30-40%, as people would have anticipated earlier, to now stabilizing to more mid-teens, That may be a reality change, but the overall gambit is it is profitable. Coming to how I see risks changing, it's also very interesting to see how the nature of questions have changed. Earlier question was, will this work? Will the sun shine? Is dust a problem? You couldn't even think about long 20-year financing. People were worried even to do 5-year financing. Forget about fixed rates, just any financing. So these are questions of growth. These are questions a big sector, a big boy sector is asked, not a developing niche sector is asked. So that itself is a beauty that you see. You are talking of questions that a sector which is no longer a marginal sector is being asked. So that's another change that I hear in the perspective. The third change, which I think is also driven with what Sai said in terms of the whole adoption of bifacial, is that it is well established now that what you're looking at is no longer just the upfront capex you put in, but the cost per unit. So as mature developers, we've moved away from the concept of just saying, okay, I have to minimize my upfront investment, but overall maximize my return on investment, irrespective of the fact, even if upfront money was more, but the returns on that additional capital is more because of additional generation. Those three themes actually define a lot of the tariff scenarios in India, right? And as you will see these each, you will find how different things have varied. So if I look at the recent auctions, right, there was an arbitrage that you saw between an MSCDCL vis-a-vis a RUMS auction happening in a span of 15 days. That arbitrage, as a developer, I would give completely just on the risk perception as a developer in terms of the offtake guarantee, credibility, payment security, and which is a big part of it, because this is no longer a 1 or 2 year game. It's a 25-year perspective with which we are building. However, if I look at specifically the risks in just the RUMS bids, right? As Mudit said, there are new horizons in which we are coming into. ALMM is a reality here. We all are pro and completely believe the Indian modules are at par at any international counterpart. But I would love to ask Sai, what are you doing in terms of getting into the LMM list? Because me as a developer, I would love to buy from you, and I've bought from you since ages. Right? Today, I don't know if that's a reality. No, and that's a real risk which we are carrying. We are bidding today, expected capacity of where we are going to be there is going to be north of 20 gigawatts, right? Despite the fact that we have the best quality modules in India, would we get that scale? And that's a risk, which is a risk we all have to be cognizant of and be aware of how to get around it. Having said that, yes, we talked about duties, but I don't think that the duty-free window will help these auctions at all. Because by the time you sign the PPAs, you start doing procurement, you will be way into ends of 2022, because the commissioning of these projects will likely happen only in 2023. So these are more long-term bets that we are all taking as a developer community. And as Mudit says, the bank guarantee costs are lower. So there is enough risk to return aversion that you can price in at the right time. Technology will obviously play a part to get here. And that's where you have to stay one step ahead of the curve to be sure not just in what you install, but also how you operate it. Couple it with data science to get the best output from what you put in to make those tariffs sustainable. The last thing I think I would like to bring up is the question that you originally put up to say, what is the developer's perspective on the future tariff trends? I would say that solar has redefined its own status and coming to say that initially it was an idea, right? Today it is a necessity. You need it. Tomorrow it's going to be a revolution. You are today at tariffs of 2.5 rupees, which are still daytime. You will eventually get to an era where you will be supplying 3.5, 4 rupee, 24-hour solar power. And that's a revolution. That's a time where you will have so much power that things that you did not even think need power, you will start using them. Electric vehicle adoption, cooling systems, things which you did not think, like you getting refrigerated vegetables throughout the year. Just having power which is abundant, cheap, and 24 hours will just change the nature in which human race will evolve. Which is why, like personally, me as a developer, I'm really bullish on where this industry can go. We may have our small blips, but they're all just a point in time. As a long arc in history, this is a very big journey that we all have to take together.
Thank you, Tanya, for summarizing it so well. And I really admire you being passionate, so much passionate about being with solar. To continue with, I think, the discussion on how technology can change this landscape. We have another panelist on board. We have Mr. Vikas Bansal from Game Change Solar. So from Vikas, we would want to know how trackers can lead to, or what is the dynamics for tracker installations in India? Your views on this, Vikas.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. That was absolutely astounding. Appreciate your views. So I have one question which always lingers on in my mind. And since I have done a lot of global business over the last 10, 12 years. So whenever you look at the global plants, which are the lowest tariff plants, previously it used to be Abu Dhabi, then it is Saudi Arabia. Mostly all of those plants always adopt, they go for trackers, and nowadays they go for bifacial modules. And it always failed me to understand that why the same trend is not happening in India. India always stuck to a standard mono module till now with fixed tilt. So we have spent a lot of time understanding this entire conundrum in terms of why it is happening. So a couple of things. Number one, so this is the base thought of what I'm going to talk about, but let me back up in terms of what technology can do. So our company has done one project in India as of now, which is a 394 megawatt project in Dholera, Gujarat. It is done for the Tata Group. Motherson team is also here. So in that plan, and this project was awarded to us almost 1.5 years back. And in this project, without going for trackers, this project was not viable. The kind of land, wind speed, cyclone, this could only be done with trackers. So this is what technology can bring to you on the table. All the technical challenges in terms of black cotton soil, in terms of high wind zone speeds, they could only be tackled by a technology which has not been yet adopted by India as of now. So that is what technology can do for you. If you look at all the evolution till now, I feel that the entry barrier is not on the capital side. A lot of people in India can raise capital. If you look at the marginal cost of lending, the difference between developers is very, very low. The developers which are bullish on technology, I won't name them, but all the developers which have been existing in the market for the last 10 years, they have taken a lot of bets in the technology, and they have not taken them. They're not playing blind. They invest, they understand, and they are always one step ahead of everybody in terms of the way they optimize their plants and they adopt technology. Just to give you an instance, in my previous company, we were bidding for a large job in Abu Dhabi, which ultimately we did. And 2018, we took a bet of putting robots for a gigawatt plant. So now it sounds okay, but putting robots on a gigawatt plant, bringing soiling losses down from 5% or 3% in a desert condition to 1% this decision was not taken in 1 minute. There was a lot of understanding which went into it, and this is what technology brings to you. So let me pause here, let me back up. So as per all the analysis which we have done, I think there are two things which need to happen and which are happening. There are few bets which people are taking, and companies like ours, which are absolutely driven by technology. Our mission is to bring down the cost of solar using technology, and this is what we have been doing over the last 8 years. Albedo improvements, what are we doing on that, right? So there are ways to improve albedo. Can you improve albedo, so that your overall LCV goes down? That's one question. We have the answer probably later, we can get into more discussions, but yes, these are some of the technological evolutions which are going to happen. Bifacials are fantastic, but if you're only producing 15 to 20% of electricity from the backside, just imagine how much wastage it is of the material and the technology which has gone into it. So that's one area. Second, sorry to say, but most of the equipments which are being used in a solar plant, most of them are still dumb. Dumb in the sense that they are all static. Somebody comes in, you look at the inverter, you will have a fixed, software which will run that inverter. Even our products are still dumb. You have a fixed code which goes into all of these systems. Are they dynamic? Are they becoming dynamic? Yes. If you look at the way the technology is evolving, now you have the modules of machine learning which are getting implemented. Our trackers are becoming smarter the way, I mean, a lot of other people are also doing it, but we are doing it probably better. And can they look at the weather? Yes, now they can look at the weather. Can they look at the undulations? Yes. So all of these things put together, these are the kind of things which will always keep you ahead of the curve. If you're not there in terms of this understanding, and it's a risk for everybody, technology adoption for us, obviously we are generating the technology, we are producing the technology, but bigger risk is with the EPCs and the developers who have to adopt it. If they don't spend enough time on understanding these technologies, there is no way anybody will be able to make the returns. So as a company, we work very, very closely with CPP, NREL, and MIT. A lot of R&D goes into the technology, and this is the way we are helping the industry to achieve the lower LCOEs.
Thank you, Vikas. We'll come back again in another set of follow-up questions on specifics about the technology you talked about. But let's hear it out from our last panelist on board, Mr. Prasad. Thank you for the patience. But L&T being the largest EPC contractors, and I believe you are in touch with the financer, with the developer, as well as the equipment suppliers. So we would like to get a holistic overview from you, Mr. Prasad. Now, what is your take on the current solar tariff trends in India? Yeah. Over to you, Mr. Prasad.
Thank you, Jyoti. So good afternoon all. I'm Prasad. I'm taking care of the tendering and proposals here in Larsen & Toubro Limited. Let me just share my screen to start the. I hope it is visible, right?
Yes, Mr. Prasad.
Thank you. So let me just talk about a little bit about first key market drivers right now, what is happening in the market. Majorly the government push of 450 gigawatt of renewables by 2030. So that is the first and foremost driver happening in the market. And of course, government is looking at various initiatives for manufacturing, especially production linking initiatives, etc. And next thing, the driver for the market is the investments, basically from foreign IPPs. We would have seen in the recent bids that most of the foreign IPPs are getting into it. And there is an India to attract around 300 billion investment by 2030. So these are the basic positive points, including the firm power requirement. But there are some uncertainties or restraints which are pulling the market down, like PPA delays and volatility in the pricing of the modules and the commodities. So these are the basic things which are pulling the industry back. And of course, on the issues related to ALMM, which Tanya was talking about it. So all these issues are, again, there are some aspects which are the restraints to the market. So if you see, this is the renewable installation target versus actual. The MNRE target is the blue cow here. So it's around 450 gigawatt by 2030. So as of now, we are in around 100 gigawatts actually installed, and going forward, we'll have to achieve that 450 gigawatt of plan. But till now, the growth rate is at the CAGR of 13%, but going forward, we'll have to achieve around 16%. And this is definitely achievable because there are so many factors driving to it. Of course, like RE100 corporate pledge and replacing the retired coal power plants. These are all the forces which are again pushing the market to achieve these targets. So market shift in the trends, if you see from the last three years, the foreign IPPs and PSU companies are entering into the market, and the share of them is keep going up. If you see for the last financial year, that is FY21, the share of foreign IPPs and PSUs have increased. Companies like NTPC, Coal India are so much aggressive and they are coming into the market. The main attractiveness for them is, I can say these are the factors which are driving them to take such kind of aggressive calls. One is, of course, for PSU companies like NTPC, there is the government of India push mandating them to participate in the renewable energy sector and increase their renewable portfolio. Of course, they have their internal targets. For example, NTPC has 30 gigawatt of plan. So even SJVNL, Coal India, all of them have very, very bigger plans in the renewables. So that is the first driver for them to participate in these bids and then get the tariffs, even if it is at the lower level. And of course, there is a high growth market. Indian market is very highly growing market. Long-term PPAs of 25 years, and these are some of the factors which are really making the attractiveness for them to be so aggressive. And if you see, this is the tariff trend. I made it into two parts. One is pre-BCD notification, and then further what is happening after the post-BCD notification. So if you see, the tariff has come down, and then again it is going up because of various reasons, which were explained by one of our panelists earlier. So there are some reasons for this kind of tariff increase. The main dynamics, the pulling forces and the pushing forces, if you see, of course, the plant technology selection, cost of financing, these are the factors which are encouraging the bidders to quote a very competitive tariff. But at the same time, the costs of commodity module prices have gone up, and the regulatory aspects like BCD, LMM, BAS, border sharing countries notifications by MNRE. So these are all the things which are really making the tariff unattractive, or I can say the tariff is again increasing because of these kind of factors. And of course, there is a PPA and RE park availability. So these are all the fundamental things which have in the recent bids of REMCL, the tariffs have gone so aggressive. Maybe the reasons might be because of this kind of attractiveness in the park. If you break down the tariff into the main contributors for any particular tariff figure, the tentative working looks like this because of equity and debt that contributes around 40% both together. So 24% for equity and 18% for debt. Then the module is contributing 28%. So these are the three main contributors for any tariff to drive up or drive down. And of course, BOS cost is also there, but BOS cost can be optimized based on the module technology again. So the outlook, if you see the low cost funds, that is of course definitely are impacting the entire tariff trends, and a better control over the module pricing going forward. So we'll have to think of various options, how to do it, the Chinese import the cells from China and then make it in India, and strategic tie up with the local manufacturers and in-house manufacturing. So these are the various things as an EPC we'll have to look into it to cater the requirements of MNRE and of course the BCD, LMM issues to tackle it with. And LCOE optimization, which our game changer has very clearly explained about how to optimize the LCOE by bifacial trackers, etc. So that is definitely, I'll just brief maybe about one or two slides I have related to the bifacial trackers, how it attracts the entire LCOE. If you see the evaluation of the technology since 2014, the modules MMS inverter, so I have made it into three parts. So earlier it was like thin film and polycrystalline modules were there in 2014 with fixed tilt central. In India, this is the prominent technology. Later on, that moved to tracker and seasonal tilt, fixed tilt kind of MMS, but poly was ruling it completely. Thin film was gone out from the market. Polysilicon is the main driver. Then in the recent past, maybe till 2020, monocrystalline with fixed tilt is the very prominent technology going on. But from 2021 and beyond, because of the pressure of tariff and the LCOE, definitely the tracker with bifacial and string central inverters will make sense. So this is the increasing generation. This is happening because of two aspects. One is by reducing the cost, both OPEX and CAPEX. Second thing, increasing the generation. so that the LCOE is getting optimized. So this is the bifacial adoption globally. If you see, this is how the bifacial is getting adopted. So going forward, India also, we can see more number of bifacial projects. And of course, as Sai was explaining earlier, that site selection and bifacial gain are the main contributors for any bifacial projects. So based on the site selection also, this matters. So it depends on the site where the project is going to come up. So we also, keeping this in mind, we also developed our in-house bifacial tracker as a, what I can say, as a, indigenously we developed it, and we have done some pilot about it, 1 megawatt project in Tamil Nadu. So I feel like going forward, this LCOE is very important thing, LCOE optimization, and of course the module aspects has to be tackled with. This is the thing which I have in my mind to share it with all you, Jyoti.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. This is very insightful presentation, and I think this is quite relevant for our audience today as well. It is we have summarized it everything in one go, which is good. So let's take one or two set of questions now. I will like to ask two questions from you, Sai. Some of the other panelists on board have also raised this issue, but I want you to know your views, which is my first question for you is, what is the impact of ALMM and BCD on global suppliers like Jinko Solar? What is your view on this?
Yeah, thanks, Jyoti. And to answer a question which has came from Tanya, specific to ALMM, of course, ALMM is not a hard nut for us, but the process is too hard. And just because of BCD, things are, getting crumbled on this particular aspect. And to be really honest with all of you, the point is that way back in 2020, during Jan 2020, we have submitted our application to ALMM. By that time, there is no COVID. Those kind of situations were not there in the country. But it was really unfortunate just because of that. And most of the, for most of the foreign manufacturers, the inspection activity which is scheduled with ALMM is completely on stall. So we expect MNRE, because as per the recent discussions with Mr. JS also from MNRE, Mr. Amtesh Sinha. So he also has deliberately told, like within 1.5 years time, this particular process of ALMM is going to get completed for the foreign manufacturers as well. So it's we are looking forward for that. Already we have submitted our application to ALMM cell. It's more like our application and our documents complete scrutiny is being handled by NICE team. So we are just hopeful on that. Very soon it's going to get completed. But the only challenge what we feel and what we foresee is that specific to inspection, factory level inspection. If MNRE or the authorized agencies, which is specifically dealing with these kind of inspection activities, if this can be offline or if this can be offset to any of the foreign third-party inspectors, so that really can help us and help the nation specific to not having any kind of roadblocks in delivering the capacities whichever is required as per the targeted one. And on the BCD part, yes, BCD is a hard nut for us. Definitely to counter that particular BCD, we are just we are highly watchful on this particular aspect. But yes, since BCD is getting linked not only on the module, but also it is in a way it is trying to link with the manufacturing aspects as well. We are keenly observing on these particular lines to see how best we can support the Indian subcontinent, where we have long-term plans of doing some kind of big ticket investments specific to manufacturing as well. But we are just awaited for long awaited information, where in which the existing PLI scheme is not so self-sufficient for us to commit on these particular lines.
Thanks, Sai. Let me take my another question with you, which is any projections on the module prices? I think our tariffs are mostly defined by module prices. Do you have any projection numbers, any estimates for what will be the tariffs in next 18 months to 2-year time frame? Anything, any?
18 months, 2 years is too long period. Now it is highly volatile. You can see that within 45 days, the kind of trajectory change has happened from 7% to 18% and 23% as well. This all has happened only in one particular component, which is the wafer itself. And yes, this is one of the hard nut for us, and this is one of the biggest challenge, which is why even we could not even materialize something on the manufacturing as well, because there is a challenge of streamlining specific to material availability. So that is raw material availability. That challenge is there, but eventually, if we just try to see, and if we just try to see for the next 3 quarters, at least for the maximum 3 quarters, what we can expect is that this particular delta can be around like 2 cents to 3 cents is what the delta can be expected on the base price, whatever is being running in the market.
Thank you, Sai, for sharing some numbers. Tanya, I have one question for you now. There are a lot of questions for developer, actually, project developer. One of the questions asked by the attendees is, what is making the developers who have won the bids in latest auction different from others who have quoted it around INR 2.5 per unit or above that?
Sure. I would say the 2 or 3 biggest things are one, the risk appetite and the return expectations that you're sitting with today. That is also partly driven with the amount of capital that you have to deploy, because I would say the last 1.5 years has been a tough year for the developers, because the capacity that you expected to get vis-a-vis what has actually got allocated hasn't been that great, which is why the chart that you showed in terms of the number of times subscription, you see those numbers going as high as 14x, 15x, to show that there's actually a lot of interest to build, but there haven't been enough opportunities to build. So somewhere there is a beating that we as a development group have had to take, and some have come ahead in that beating and some haven't. So that's actually the core difference, I would say. I read the question where someone said, is it that one has more access to technology while the other is not? I don't think that is like that much of a differentiator today. Obviously, there are aspects in terms of how you look at operating the plant. That is becoming a very, very big part of it, because every extra unit you get goes to the bottom line. And that's also a part of being very disciplined in your operations, vis-a-vis building something just to flip. So that has definitely an impact. And the second impact is the scale of the balance sheet with which you carry, so that you can have an access to some amount of assured low cost funds for longer duration of time. So, and we're moving from an era where this was an 80% technology game and 20% financing to an era where this is almost 60-40, right? 60% technology and 40% financing. And you can see that also in the kind of players who've been winning bids.
Right, Tanya. Tanya, there's one more question for you, which is, as a developer, are you also exploring the option of bifacial module installations in your big scale plants?
Sure. So definitely we are, so sometimes what happens is, to give you a perspective, I was one of the first people who put a tracker plant in 2017. At that time, there was a lot of nervousness about tracker technology. Lenders were not even looking to fund it with the same amount of leverage that they fund a normal plant. And my learning from that was that you have to build in downsides which you don't expect when you run a financial model, right? Because in reality, there are moments in time when things don't work as you planned, and the hit of having a tracker plant or a bifacial plant are way more than a hit you will take for a normal design, because every incremental hour of loss generation hits you more in your bottom line to get the original capex you set for. Having said that, the beauty of why you see this very quick adoption from poly to mono to now bifacial is that the price difference between them vis-a-vis the extra advantage you get has minimized. So there was this time where the price difference between mono and poly being cheaper was almost to the tune of 2 to 3 cents. That has now come down drastically. Similarly, the price difference between mono and bifacial is not even the tune of 1.5 cents now. So the difference that you are giving is lesser than the amount of output that you can expect even in a downside case, which is why even without trackers on a fixed tilt solution basis also bifacial makes sense. With tracker, obviously you have your pros and cons and benefits and risks of trackers, depending on what location you are, how north or south are you of the tropic Cancer, how is the angle of the sun, how is the layout of the ground to ensure enough reflection to use the backside of the bifacial model. So there are a lot of other factors, but as an overall concept, just because of the difference in price, I would say that the bifacials are here to stay, because even the slight incremental generation makes up for the additional 1 cent that you put in for.
Thank you, Tanya, for sharing your answers in such a crisp way. My next question is for you, Vikas, actually. If you can share some specific numbers, I believe you've worked in a lot of international projects as well with bifacials and trackers. So as Tanya said, there are a lot of factors which are depending, this is which energy gain is depending on. But as a broad range, if you can throw some numbers with your experiences internationally as well as India projects, I think that will be helpful for the audience.
So one thing I would like to tackle is the more the risk perception is, I think the entire game is about the actual risk and the perceived risk. So the more the people deep dive into things, that gap keeps on coming down, and people who spend more time on all of these technologies. I'm not talking about tracker in particular, but in general on the bifacials also. So once you bridge that gap, if your perceived risk is much less and actual risk could be much less, then you have an advantage there. But coming back to the numbers in particular, I'm not sure whether you're talking about the generation numbers. The generation gain, if you look at India, it's a very simple story. The more you're closer to equator, the more south you go, the probability of everything working out with bifacial with tracker goes up. As per our analysis, which we have been doing for the past many months, we think that 21-22 cents of bifacial modules, this is the switch wherein numbers just start to make sense, and then obviously it depends on how much risk you perceive on the technology. So in this band, if the modules stay in this band, which is expected to be the case for the next at least 1.5 year, we think you can get into how do you from that base, you can see, can you improve albedo? Yes, no. Can you use better algorithms for the cloud tracking? Yes, no. So all those are all upsides which you can try and build in, but those are the kinds of numbers. And obviously right now the commodities are playing havoc on everything, including our product, including others' products. When the commodities soften a bit, and at least in our market, we see commodities softening, commodities getting softened a bit in the next 3 to 6 months. When that happens, obviously this 21-22 switch, we feel. So for us, the best case is that Jinko and everybody else, they keep on selling their stuff at a high price, and that's the way our business case will work. But nonetheless, this is the way the market, as I said, is growing. Internationally, it's a very different case. There are no local content requirements. It's absolutely cut and dry, and the appetite to adopt technologies is a bit better, because probably not sure about the kind of IRRs people work with, but developers they quickly adopt new technologies in terms of even the robots. So that trend probably, I'm not able to overlay some of those trends to the Indian market. Every market is unique in that way, but yeah. So moving forward, expecting things to at least be better on the technology side for our kind of products. And when that happens, the switch probably, I guess, from 21-22 will shift to 20 model price, wherein adoption of our technology will go up.
Thank you, Vikas. I think we all are hopeful that technology will change the rule of the games. It has already changed, and it will continue to do that. Mr. Prasad, I think the last question for this session today I have for you is, what is your take as EPC contractors on the future tariff trends? What do you think I think right now also a lot of people are talking about with these concluded auctions that, they might be the case that they will source the modules before the deadline of March 31st. But for the future auctions, or probably by next year, what could be the future tariff trends according to you, Mr. Prasad?
Yeah. So if you see the BCD implementation starts from April 1st onwards. So I'm not sure how much of betting, or I can say the risk taking by the developers when they are quoting these recent tariffs. But definitely the impact of the BCD on the modules will be increasing the tariff, no doubt about it, because the BCD is not a small number. It is 40% on module and 25% on cells. So that even if we plan to import the cells and convert it in India, the conversion cost for the module is high here in India when compared with China. So definitely the cost of module with the present rates of module, if you see, the tariffs are definitely going to go up, no doubt about it. But going forward, it's all about the optimization at the backward integration of the manufacturers happening. So the wafer prices and the polysilicon prices also matters. So if that is driving down the module costs, then there can be some reduction can be possible, but that all depends on the years to come, like 2023-24, we can expect that better pricing. So for a 18 months or 24 months project duration, the tariffs coming in the coming bids will be definitely going up, unless the developers take so much of speculation on the module pricing, or they compromise on the IRR and their interest rates are so cheap. It is not possible to adapt to the rates which are prevailing as of now.
Thank you, Prasad, for sharing your views. So I have one or more two questions. I think let me take that up since we have a little bit of time left. One for you, Tanya. In Rumsmid, how much was the benefit of land and infrastructure which translated into bid tariffs? If someone can help with the land cost involved, as I guess more project structuring has helped RUMS rather than technology. Your views on this?
The RUMS project is unique in the sense it's a solar park. So you actually already know the land that you will get, and which changes the risk profile a lot, because in a typical project, you will spend the first 6 to 8 months just buying land and then define how your design, construction outlook, the whole EPC's this thing will look like. Here, you could do that all upfront, because there is a lot of information that was already shared on the soiling profile, how the land is, which is why you also see the tariffs being to where they are, because a lot of the risk of one buying land to uncertainty of what you will get, where you will get, are already taken out from this. You pay a fee for it, but it's different from, like, going out, finding a substation, finding land. As a number, I don't remember them back then, but they are transparently available in terms of the fee that you have to pay. It's a cascading structure. They charge you a smaller amount upfront, and then you have to pay on a cascading basis every year to use the park. But I don't think I would say that it's just that, and technology has no part to play. But definitely will say that vis-a-vis a bid which is not in a solar park, here the bidding is more aggressive, because that risk is out, and also with the backing of the kind of developer, the off-takers you have, World Bank coming in, it reduces the risk perspective drastically.
Right. In continuation to that, there is a delta between the three RUMS tenders, 30 paisa. What could have caused the tariffs to swing so much? Is there any reason for this?
Well, I think I answered that a little bit in terms of the overbidding and the need to build. So obviously, and there are subtle differences across parks. One has a 66-kilometer evacuation line, the other only has a 5-kilometer evacuation line, right? So those definitely translate into some. In one, your usable land is almost 90%, and the other usable land that you will get is not even 70, 80. So you can design only accordingly, you can oversize only accordingly. But these are subtle differences. They will account for maybe like 10, maybe that kind of range of paisa. The rest is the beauty of a reverse open auction that developers are paying for to be relevant and be there in the game.
Thank you, Tanya, for your transparent views, I think. And thank you everyone, to all the attendees, to our wonderful panelists. It was a very interesting discussion. I personally enjoyed it and I learned a lot of new trends that are going to shape up this market. Hope every one of you have found it interesting too. Special thanks to Jinko Solar for supporting us in this webinar. Thank you everyone for joining this webinar. The recording of the session will be available on our website shortly. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.